Welcome to the stage, Chief Brand Officer of Macro, Stacey Walker King, and Founder and CEO of Macro, Charles King.
Hello, hello. How's everybody doing?
What's up, everybody?
Good. It's so good to be with all of y'all, to see some familiar faces and new faces in the room. So thank you all for coming and sharing with us. Like the voice said, I'm Stacey King. I'm Chief Brand Officer of Macro.
I'm Charles King, CEO and founder of Macro.
All right, and so let's get into it and just have the conversation. So, one of the things that we talk about is there's our company where we've done I think some incredible things, but there are a lot of you who may not even know what our company is, what it's about. So, Charles, I would love for you to start us off just with the origin story of Macro.
All right, I'll start out with a little bit about my background and our origin story. So was born in New York, in Harlem. I don't know if there's anyone from NYC, but all right. Family moved south and grew up in the suburbs just outside of Atlanta in Decatur, Georgia. There you go, ATL in the house. All right, James, I see. So grew up there and then went to college in Nashville, went to Vanderbilt University for my undergraduate studies, and then attended, after working a couple of years in the corporate world, attended Howard Law School. After Howard Law, moved to LA and landed in the infamous William Morris mailroom, where I spent just under 20 years. I was an agent and partner. I became the first African-American partner in the history of any one of the major talent agencies, represented artists across every sector of the business, and ultimately knew before I went into that mailroom there was a vision to one day build and launch a multi-platform entertainment company like the one we have now with Macro. And we launched Macro in 2015. So that's a little bit of the backstory about how we got here. But you should also tell a little bit about, you just threw out there about you being Chief Brand Officer, but Stace, you should tell a little bit about your story as well.
My origin story to get to Macro. So I grew up in Texas, and then I went to college on the East Coast. I went to Duke, and then I moved to New York. And my career had been in marketing and branding in the fashion and beauty industry. So I met a dude, and so he was like, I have a company I want to start. I want to move to LA. I was like, bye. I love New York. But I think one of the things though that was so impressive, to me at the time meeting you in '95 is that you had this vision for this company that you wanted to start. And I think that, listen, I love money as much as anybody else does, but I also am just really turned on with people with ideas and actually with a thought about this is what exists and I see something new. So I supported it 100%. And then, eventually moved to LA. And, but really, even as you were in your career and were making our path towards getting to Macro, that was never something that appealed to me. I didn't want to be in the entertainment business. I said it, I don't even like entertainment people, so it wasn't going to be me. But I really was just I think one of the things that when we launched it, that I just saw it as an idea whose time had come. I saw companies that I had worked for, large scale companies that spent millions every single year marketing and trying to reach and to talk to particularly, consumers of color, and just were never able to have what Macro had just from the announcement that we made. So I wanted to bring everything that I had to bear, everything I had learned from all of my experiences for this company. One of the things too, Charles, I would love for you to talk about just really that tipping point. I mean, where you kind of glossed over it, but you had major success in, the corporate world, and unprecedented. And so can you just share a little bit about that tipping point for, why this company?
So going back to the vision, Stacey jokes about it, but this idea of building and launching this company definitely crystallized way back in the mid-90s. I think we talked about it on our second date even, and you were like...
You talked about it. You're supposed to be talking about me, and you were talking about that.
But it was really with a vision of understanding that there was a need to tell stories that would include us, but there was also a vision to build a multi-platform billion-dollar company at the same time that would be a part of shaping culture, but would also have economic empowerment and reinvest in the communities as well. So even with going to Howard Law School, I was focused on not only I was thinking about civil rights and entertainment at the same time. So the idea of merging those two together was something that was even in the back of my head even back then. So going into the talent agency world and understanding that the agency is the belly of the beast, where you're at the epicenter of everything that happens, of all the projects, of every film, television show that gets put together, the artists, you're at the middle of what happens. So I knew that if I could go in there, gain that experience, and then one day take that knowledge, take the relationships, to then go launch and build something. And so we went in there in the mailroom, and it was an idea and a vision to go in there for about 10 years to one day launch the company. The thing about it is I was much better at doing this than I thought that I would be. You know, I made history when I became the first black partner at one of these major agencies. I loved being an artist advocate and was doing extraordinarily well representing artists across every sector like we talked about. But I was also then at some point approached about the future leadership of the William Morris Agency. And so the idea of potentially running that company and what that could mean for our community, I thought that I would be doing myself and our community a disservice if I didn't at least see that through. So at the height of all of that, we continue to do that. But that tipping point that Stacey talks about was when William Morris went from William Morris, we merged with another company, Endeavor, and we became WME, which is now what they are today. It was all of the disruption around it became for me the reminder as to what we set out to do in the first place. And so right around that time, which was 2009, I think within that year after the merger is when we first actually put pen to paper with writing the business plan. And once again, it was a King family investment. We were really very specific about it. We have some really smart Harvard MBA people under some serious NDAs. And we were crafting out the plan for Macro in 2010, and we didn't actually publicly launch until 2015. We were also very purposeful for 2010 to 2015, where I was this very senior partner at WME, but I spent a lot of time cultivating key relationships in Wall Street, key relationships in the private equity sector, key relationships in technology, got very active as an angel investor. And it was really all of the kind of formulation of all of that, recognizing that when we leaped and launched the company in 2015, these were not necessarily new relationships. And so, if anything, we were overly prepared to go on this journey that we've been on together. And once again, it was a family journey. The company was funded by the King family for the first 6 months when we launched, and then we obviously raised capital and have had extraordinary partners and investors since then. Yeah.
Sure. So, I think one of the things too about the company, which we hear it today from so many other people that are either looking to launch businesses, actually both in the entertainment industry and outside of it, is the way that it's structured, right? And so we talked about it a little bit. It's on the reel that just played, but talk a little bit about the different verticals, the structure of it, and then I have a follow-on question to that is about what is one of the what are the misconceptions about the business?
Yeah. So we have Macro as our holding company. And under that, we have three primary core verticals of business. There are content studios, which is our film, television, and digital studios, where we finance and produce television, scripted, unscripted, documentaries, docuseries. Our digital group incubates IP, creates short-form content, creates podcasts. So we're financing, producing, developing, doing everything across. I would say we're platform agnostic, so we look at what are the great stories we want to tell and the artists we want to support in telling them, and what are the best platforms to do it. And then we have our representation vertical, which represents about 175 of the most incredible, from top level A+ movie stars like Michael B. Jordan or people like Taraji P. Henson or Gemma Chan, or to the most significant filmmakers of our generation like Ryan Coogler, Bliss Bazuli, who just directed The Color Purple. But also we represent a lot of cultural influencers coming off of social media and a lot of multi-hyphenates. And then the secret sauce for our company, which is an area that I would love for you to really.
You didn't talk about the venture fund.
Oh, about our venture. Yeah, we'll. So, but the secret sauce area is absolutely what Stacey, as our chief brand officer, does, and our creative agency and that business. But outside of that, which I would love for you to talk about that, we incubated an investment strategy from Macro Holdco, which we took some of the capital off of our balance sheet. We were investing in a number of companies that were strategically aligned with what Macro was building, and then that business, frankly, turned into Mac Venture Capital, which sits outside of Macro, but has a strategic alignment and obviously an upflow opportunity for Macro as well. But it's one of the largest early stage venture firms in Los Angeles, 500 million AUM, and they're leading and co-leading rounds. And we have 3 amazing partners in addition to myself who run that. And that's just a business that's taken off. And I'd say 75% of those founders of those companies are women and people of color, and it's really transformative, the work that they're doing. So, yeah. But I want Stacey to talk about the brand Macro Group. Sure. Come on.
I think just also one of those verticals is the group that I run. And so this has been something where you talk about, kind of going into launching this company with the vision for us. So those verticals that you talked about were ones, absolutely, they were part of our business plan. We already knew that's what we were going to do. But then being able to identify new verticals and new opportunities where we're uniquely positioned to deliver this, and our brand group is one of them. When I first started working with the company, which it was like, when I first started working with the company, it was just, what do we need help doing? A new person would start, and I would go to the Apple store, and I'd come and I'd be like, here's your laptop. But then, just how that continued to grow, which was, like I said, I just saw that the way that people responded to this company, creators, investors, just people across the board were like, I want to be a part of this. And then also people have something that, honestly, one of the only other brands that I can think of off top that has this kind of feeling, and I talk about it's kind of like, it's like Disney, where people have, they all feel a sense of ownership of it. Like, this has to succeed. I'm a part of it. It's mine too. Oh, I want Macro to do this. We get this from people across the board. And so what I saw was we just need to feed that community. That's it. They are obviously looking for places to convene and be. They're looking for this to happen. And so that's how it started, was, I was creating these things. And then brands started to come to say, we just want to support the work you're doing. And that was that part. So that's, leveling up to that. And then it leveled up to another part, which is we're always going to support the work that Macro does. But now we need help too. We need somebody to build. Like, if you were us, what would you do? Build for us. Some of that came out of, the reckoning of the summer of 2020. Some of that came out of the post-reckoning, which is all these beautiful and incredible statements and press releases that had come out of all this work that these companies were going to be doing. And then they were like, oh no, we really haven't done any of it. Who can help us to actually, make good on, and where do we deploy some of this money we said we were going to do? So we've had everywhere down from, I would say like Fortune 10 companies that we now work with, where we help them craft all sorts of things. It's branded content that we build for them. It's campaigns. It's, full agency business, but, kind of going into it, like I said, from the start, that wasn't a part of like the original verticals we were launching with, but it's something that we have been able to, grow and like do a really great job with. So that side of our business has grown significantly. I want you to talk a bit about, having because I'm just thinking about, this is my second summit, my first summit at sea, but my second summit that I've been to. And I love, kind of how there's this whole, people that are here where they're doing things with intention. And I would love for you just to share, obviously this is a business that was started to be a business. We are not, a nonprofit, but also that there is a strong mission behind it and how that just, is a through line with everything that we do.
Yeah, no, obviously the the mission of our company is about, as part of shaping culture, but also economically empowering communities. Because we knew that, one, shaping culture for those 15 plus years while I was a senior partner at WME, in the halls, of in the meetings for every studio and what projects they were making and every network, and recognizing that there was no conversation about anyone in this room, that we were an afterthought, and that so many of the stories that were being told were not being told from our perspective, that also these stories were not owned within the same community that was behind telling the stories when they were given that opportunity to do so. Of all the independent financiers, there was no one that was focused on this community. And we're talking about a community that is the global new majority. We're talking about the community domestically, especially back when people were going to movie theaters. 50% of everyone who buys a ticket to a film is a person of color, but yet only like 8% of the movies that were being made had a person of color at the center of them. You think about, African Americans who are watching television or streaming platforms at 40% higher rates. And yet there were barely any shows on the air, or before all the streaming platforms were out, before we launched Macro, that even had us within it. And so there was a need. People want to see content that's a reflection of their experience, but there's also the universality of the stories that are being told. And it was clear that it was clear that someone needed to take the leap of faith on behalf of a larger community. And also, too, there were so many people, even think about the people that I represented or that we knew within Hollywood, that didn't recognize their own power, let alone, their own power to harness that, to entrepreneurially be able to tell our stories. And then you can only imagine for kids who grew up in San Antonio or Decatur, Georgia, who are they going to see? And so it was clear that, not only was there a community need to show what could be done, what we could do, and a template for that, for kids coming up, but also for those even within the industry. And so there was that intentionality behind it of being a positive disruptor within Hollywood. And what we've seen is this incredible sea change of many really powerful celebrities who've gone and raised capital and are now launching their studios and companies. And then the real power is when people are coming together. So that intentionality was absolutely behind it. And then also understanding that economic clout and power is really the universal language as well. And so understanding ways to take capital we've raised to reinvest back in the community, and why we have this venture fund that's one of the ones that's changing the marketplace and providing opportunity alongside so many other great investors like my man Eric Moore here, who understood what we were doing from day one. And there was that intentionality behind it of the two coming together.
Perfect. I want to talk a little bit about change, the only constant, right? And so I think about, as you talked about, we've got these different verticals, but we also, this past year, were in a moment of just unprecedented change in our industry for sure, but then, other industries as well. But two historic labor strikes that happened in the entertainment world. There was also, I alluded to it a little bit before, about, these reckonings that are happening. It happened with, Black people and people of color. In 2020, there's definitely been a reckoning for women, and that, kind of bad behaviors now, that moment has happened. So, I'm just curious about and this is not just specific for Macro, but just in general, like what challenges does that present just for leadership, and how do you navigate that? How have you navigated it for Macro and beyond?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just especially given our talk is about leadership and things to take away. And I would also say for any entrepreneur, even person in our industry, that when there's tremendous change and chaos, that there's also tremendous opportunity amidst that. And so one of the things that we tried to drill into, when you think about just what's happened over the course of the last, 4.5 years, between what happened around the global pandemic, obviously within our industry, what happened within this unprecedented 60-year double labor strike, and then everything else within it, within the kind of global reckoning around conversations around equity and inclusion. Within that, yes, there were changes of business models. There are new companies that are going to be, that were launched that happened through this. And for us, even at the top of what happened through the pandemic, we doubled in size. When we saw what happened where talent agencies were challenged, couldn't go public, they were having challenges, people were reevaluating their lives, we saw that there was a need and a community request for new form of representation, and that's when we launched our representation arm. That's when we really actually doubled down and further invested in our television studio. So we, more than doubled in size at the top of the pandemic. So being courageous and brave while other people were scared, that's one key thing I would take away and something to think about for any entrepreneur. And then secondly, last year, while there was the double strike that was happening and people were, companies left and right were firing and getting rid of people. And we actually didn't let go of a single person. We reinvested in the team that we have. And then in addition to that, we spent the whole year being proactive about new business lines we were going to go into. And then actually towards the end of that double strike, invested in firming up and adding to our leadership team so that we would come out on the other side of the double strike actually that much more ahead while everyone else was scaling back. And so key takeaways I would say for any entrepreneur is, having that conviction, being brave when others aren't, and be willing to kind of challenge yourself and support the team and stand through the storm, and then be ready to pick off the opportunities amidst the chaos that's happening, and being really strategic about that and the steps that you're going to take through it.
Yeah. The only thing that I would add to that is one thing that, I'm just proud of our company and what we did during that time, during even the pandemic, when you talked about how we grew. But even before we did that, we also, our leadership team took pay cuts so that we wouldn't have to lay people off. And, I say that not just to pat ourselves on the back. Honestly, it's really it says a lot about the team that we amassed. That's right. That this was not something that was mandated. It was something that we talked about, and then people were like, yeah, I don't want to lose anyone on my team. And so I think it just has been about that as well, how we have just brought people into it that have not just been mission aligned and believe in what we're doing, but I talk about that part of where they believe this company has to succeed, and I'm going to do what I can do to make sure that it does.
Also, too, thinking about business lines that have happened even organically. So even what you saw when we would just have hey, let's bring people together for the macro convening, or we didn't get invited to Vanity Fair. Well, why aren't we launching our own party? Why aren't we doing an event to celebrate not us, but for our entire community? Because if we're not invited to these things, could you only imagine what's happening to everyone else? And what we saw last year through the double strike, where you had areas of our company that they could not make film and television except for the few things where you could get waivers or opportunities that we saw in the unscripted or in the documentary space. But in the area, in the brand group, this was an area of our company that experienced almost double revenue growth because of all the things. So you should talk about some of those things as well, of how we found opportunity to grow in branded content, and how with the shifts that are happening in our marketplace, and how we were able to tap into it through that.
Sure. I think that the thing that I can just say about that specifically is, I just took which is something that our company knows how to do, and then how we could do that for just brands and clients. And storytelling is at the key of that. Where really it was, this is something that we've been, known for, is premium content and developing that and creating it and, and financing it. And that's been, bread and butter part of our business. And when we just looked at films can't get made, TV shows can't get made, my colleagues were they are just on big chilling in the office. And my brand team, we are working like crazy, because brands came to us with we need to, advertising is not working anymore, direct advertising we know we've been doing forever. What else can we do? And it really had been about, we can create moments for you. And we started doing that. You talked about these different convenings and these things that we had been creating. That was something where brands were we need to figure out how we can reach our customers better And what would you build for us? And one of the biggest things that we did, we built a big activation at Art Basel that became an even bigger activation at Art Basel, which is becoming more people are reaching out with like, can you come to Cannes Lion? Can you come to Cannes and build that for us? So these things which we just originally started off just doing for ourselves, we just did it at a level of excellence and with intention that is what has created these other opportunities for us, which honestly, we didn't, we still are in a business where it's primarily, incoming calls business. And I think that that has been something I'm also super proud of is that we've gotten incoming emails at info@staymacro.com. Like, hey, we're from you, insert large brand. We don't even know who to reach out to there, but we follow you on socials and we want to talk. So it has been this great thing, but I guess my biggest thing that I would say about it, the key lesson and learning for me is moving with intention with the thing that you're doing, whatever that is, and that's gonna, that business is gonna come. I have heard that for, my whole life, and my whole business life, and I gotta say, I didn't know if I actually believed it. I'm like, how could that be? How would people find it? And that has actually happened for us, that I have literally, me, my team, we have just been building the things that I need, that I wanna see, that I wish existed for me, and then I'm seeing how it has turned into this incredible, business, incredible partnerships that I had never envisioned would happen. So that's been awesome. I want to talk, if you could talk a little bit more about authentic storytelling. I mean, I was just talking about it from the brand perspective, but what could be your advice for creatives, for entrepreneurs, for innovators, just on, how to tell their own stories authentically?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say this for any, creator, anyone that wants to tell any story. And it's definitely the advice that I give to any young person that's ever approached me about how do I get into the industry, or I'm a writer, I'm a filmmaker, an artist, and here's what are people looking for? And the first thing I always tell them is don't worry about what the marketplace is looking for. Don't worry about what any of the studios are looking for. Don't worry about what the talent agencies or managers. Tell the stories that you're passionate about. What's exciting to you and your community, your friends, and the marketplace. You will find a way to have that story be told. Figure out what that story is, and then you find the right platform, especially young people and the tools that they have at their disposal, how they can directly cultivate and communicate with their friends and build an audience online through social media. So, and the other thing within that is making sure that whatever they're doing is authentic to who they are. And even for us, with the launch of the company, we launched Macro, I think it was, a month before the first Oscars So White campaign. And then, for the first time that happened, and people were like, did you do this because of that? We're like, no, this is work that we've been leaning into and representing people of color, for over 15 years as an agent at the forefront of, I'd say 70% of most of the content that had moved the needle and had worked. It touched in some shape, form, or fashion between the writers, the stars, the filmmakers. So it wasn't some reaction to a market need. And even when we launched and others, kind of followed, or even since then with the kind of conversation with studios launching initiatives and going after the same community and marketplace that we've been building for 9 years, that's great that they're doing it, but if you're doing it with authenticity and purpose, it just can't be recreated. And we see that in the fabric of our work with the artists that we work with, the relationship that we've now are building with consumers. The consumers know the difference, and so that's just baked into the fabric of our team and who they are. And that's the other thing I would say around authenticity and voice, is making sure that everyone has a voice that's sitting at a table. And I would say that's another thing that has been a secret sauce for us, in that from the interns to the assistants to the senior executives, it's not the decisions of the films and television shows and projects experience. I see you doing it with your entire team. it's not just off of what we think. We're also making sure that we're leaning into, and the voices of all of our younger colleagues are heard. And so some of the most needle-moving projects that we've been involved in, from Sorry to Bother You, that was from some of our younger executives who are like, if Macro doesn't get involved in that, what are you guys doing? And yet we actually had senior members of our team who didn't understand it and get it. And we listened to the young people at the company. Judas and the Black Messiah, so much of the development of that and the work that we did on the script alongside Ryan Coogler and Shaka King, who partnered up with us on it, was some of the development work of the youngest members of our team, who are also activists who truly are in touch with everything that the film was about. So making sure that everyone's voice is heard, and when you do that, the authenticity of that really shines through, and I think has been a part of why we've been able to have 15 Oscar nominations, or the 12 Emmy nominations and 3 Oscar wins, and all of those things. The quality of the work has also been about authenticity and making sure that there's diversity of thought around the table too when we're putting our projects together.
For sure. And I think, just the other piece to that too is the willingness and the courage to say no. I think we say no to more things, more partnerships, more projects. When you talked about self-funding the company in the beginning, we had an investor, a potential investor. And as we were going through the process, and this is like at a time where it was, so scary for us because you were about to leave. I mean, I wasn't, where I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And it was just like, okay, we're about to take this leap. And then it's like, this does not feel right. And for the two of us to be like, you know what, we're going to jump into this with this person, and it's going to be bad. It's going to feel like this the whole time. And when I think back now to how scary that seemed to be like, we're going to fund this company ourselves for 6 months. Yeah. But now when I think about what the alternative would have been, it would have been an entirely different, we wouldn't be here. We might not be together. No, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad.
Or both.
But no, it just was like, just kind of thinking about just that, and again, staying true to what the original vision was. And just a question that I have about that, just really because I know there are a bunch of entrepreneurs and creators in this room, and so there's one thing about staying true to your vision when it's just when it's just you and me. This is what we're doing. This is what's going. As the company's grown and a lot of success, and now it's grown with there's so many people that are coming in, and there's that. What are your tips about just staying true to your vision? Yeah. Particularly when it's now we have gotten investors and then other investors and the thing how do you stay true to it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely having that conviction that we started out with at the very beginning. I mean, what she's referencing is, after that 17 plus years at WME, I think that, the Christmas break, I think it was Christmas break of 2014, we were going to go public with our press announcement the first day of the year of 2015. And I ended up in a 2-hour diligence meeting. I think it was on Christmas Eve, I believe. And we ended up taking that potential investor out of the press release. And, this is after I shook the hand of the CEO of the company, said, hey, that I used to work at, and said, hey, this is going to happen. And we launched and announced without them and just with ourselves. And then, continued to step out on faith. And we had committed to a team of executives, at that point that were already taking that jump with us. So as Stacey said, we self-funded. And having that conviction that we had day one and recognizing those are the wrong partners, and ended up with the most transformative partners and investors, 6 months later, with 10 times better terms, and I can't even explain just how important it was to maintain our conviction and to make sure that we had people around the table who saw both a short-term but long-term vision for what we're building. So even as we've grown as a company, and as we've had our moments and times where there have been, partnerships and relationships that have been, where you could see perhaps we're not mission aligned. And I think those are always those times for us to continue to go back to those moments and maintain that conviction at the center of it, while also knowing that we're always going to evolve and grow. And so you got to have your core that's there, but also got to be open to times where you can expand, and tweak and reevaluate. And we've been, doing that, and the establishment of our brand as being a premium content company with, critical acclaim, but then taking steps like we've done with movies like They Clone Tyrone that, were much broader in scope, but also resonate with the community. And then, additional steps that we'll take, within expanding into other business lanes and, getting into areas that are very much aligned with our core, but might be, slightly different what we established, but making sure that the center never changes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure. All right, I'm going to pivot a little bit, and I want to just talk about, kind of balance. Yeah. And, talk about what you do for balance, and what you could be doing better. And, just I think in terms of leading in this era that we're in right now.
Well, you should chime in about this too, because I think we're both working on this every day. But we have a strong balance, I think, between ourselves, our community, but our family. And it's been interesting to look at this, because I think there are times where, I've been all in, and then there was a little bit of time, there's always some time for our family, but there's moments now where I pull back a little bit, and, I'm spending more time with the kids than you, and because it's a partnership. But there's always, we've never been at a place where it's only just about work and it's only just about macro. We'll always have space for our family and for each other. It's been interesting. I think some of the earlier days, we had this rule that we came up with, I think it was maybe a year or two into it, where we said no conversation about anything work-related past, I think it was at 8 o'clock, and it was harder, I think, earlier on, even though the company's so
there were some
bigger.
Silent nights. We're like, I don't have to say.
But it's been interesting as we're getting big, as the company has gotten bigger and there's more going on. Actually, I think we adhere to it more than we did in the earlier days, and the company's so much bigger. But in terms of balance, definitely, getting into having fun outside of all of our work and making sure that we're there for everything with our kids. But you should chime in about the balance.
No, that's real. I think that there's a part of, work is just hard. I think everybody knows that work is work. That's why they call it work. And so, but I think there's a thing where we have started to become a lot more intentional about enjoying this journey, not just racing towards, a destination or whatever that may be. Yeah. And it's taken a lot. I mean, it's a lot. It's also one of the reasons why we came here, was, making sure that we're pouring into ourselves as much as we are, pouring out. But I'm not even on front. We need tips. We need help. It is a real thing about, when you're look, as I'm sure so many of you are, you're looking to build something that didn't exist before. So there's on the one hand, it's great that we're doing it together because there's just an inherent loneliness in that. But then there's also something about where, I think we have felt for years that it's we can't rest. Every minute we're not pushing forward to this. This is, we gotta keep going. And some of this now we're learning that, some of the rest is, it's resistance. It's important. It's important.
And it's interesting too, even though balance is one of the core values that we have at the companies. We have 13 core values. And I feel like we definitely make sure our team is balancing. And, we also, it's always for us a balance to make sure we're balancing as well. So that's why you're right. That's why one of the reasons we're here at Summit and enjoying the new relationships we've been making here and just kind of soaking things up. And it's been great for us so far. Yeah.
All right, so I have, it's why we have Thirsty Thursdays at the company. So if any of y'all come to have a meeting with us, plan it for Thursday at 4 o'clock and get
come
back.
Turn up. Yeah.
Right, to get a little turn up in the middle of the day. No, last question really is just about, what's next? What's next for Macro? What are you the most excited about? What are you most excited about in our industry? Where do you think the company is, headed?
Yeah, I'm excited for so much of what's happened, as we've talked about. I mean, you think about how much growth we've been able to experience over the course of the last 4 years, despite all the changes in the marketplace, despite what happened with the global pandemic. And all of the new partners that joined us at the end of last year. So what we're looking at is just broadening out the scope of our content offerings, and we have so many films that are in the can and in post-production now. But all of the ones that we're getting in geared up for the shooting, later on this year. The television series, that we have a television show with Apple that we're the studio of, with David Oyelowo. Incredible actor. It's it'll be our first show with Apple. But really, I'm very excited about what we're doing to get into a wider range of content. As we've talked about, I thought that Tyrone was like an example of broadening the scope. And you think about some of the franchises that we're developing now that I know will come down the pike. I'm really excited about the things we're doing to develop internationally. We've been able to firmly establish Macro's brand and our resonance, and even the community that you and your team have built, both within Hollywood, but now extending it with HBCUs and outside of it. But thinking about some of our initiatives around the continent of Africa, thinking about the projects that we have in development, with India, things we're talking about with Brazil and LATAM, really excited about the extension of the Macro brand, because it is a focus of being a global media brand. So all of those things, as they begin to roll out and go into production over the course of the next couple of years. But then I'm really excited about the newer areas of our business and what's happening around the creative agency, and just the tremendous growth that we've seen there, and just where that business is going, which you can talk more about, and our representation business, and where that's how that's really kind of turbocharged over the course of the last 3 years. But can only imagine, as we go from the representation of artists in film and television and in digital, what's going to happen as we begin to tap more further into the culture around music and sports, not only just for representation, but even more broadly as a company. There's just, as so many things we've been approached by, and there's so much around community and culture that we're touching, but just what's going to happen as we evolve. So I look at the company, we're only 9 years in, but I feel like we're literally just at the starting point of where the brand and the company are headed. But I would love for you to share about some of the things you're excited about.
You said it. I think that there's, when I just think about this community that we have built, and I'm just looking forward to more of that. I feel like we have just really built some truly innovative shit. And I want to just do that in more territories and more places. So I am beyond excited to be here. The people that I've met that I just love, this collective dreaming that we've been able to do. And also to be around more and more, just I think in this phase of my life, being at things like this and just other places we go, other things, which is I'm around people that are not just talking about it, but we're, being about it. And so I'm just excited about that as a future Macro.
Absolutely. Okay, well, so there we go.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you guys for coming to hang out. Hopefully we'll be able to see you guys out and about, and we, spend time here at the summit. That's right. Thank you.